"You'll never be half the woman your sister is." Those were my mother's exact words, spoken across the dinner table as if I wasn't even there. My father didn't defend me either. He just nodded and laughed, praising my sister for being their golden child. For years I stayed silent. Every family gathering turned into a competition I never signed up for. They compared my clothes to hers, my job to hers, even the way I laughed. No matter what I achieved, it was never enough. But what they didn't know was that behind the quiet smiles, I had a secret. While they were busy worshiping my sister's so-called success, I had been building something brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. That night, as the words "half the woman" echoed in my ears, I finally decided I wasn't going to let them humiliate me anymore. My heart was pounding, my hands trembling, but I was ready. So when my parents asked my sister about her promotion, I cleared my throat and revealed the truth that changed everything. Not one of them saw it coming. And when the number left my lips, $84,000, they all went silent. Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Flame, the channel where real stories of betrayal, family drama, and jaw-dropping revenge come alive. If you've been with us for a while, you already know we don't just tell stories, we take you inside them. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you don't want to miss what's coming next. Today's story is one that so many of you will relate to. It's about family favoritism, cruel comparisons, and the shocking moment when the person everyone underestimated finally takes back control. It's raw, emotional, and proof that sometimes the quietest person in the room has the loudest victory. So grab a seat, because when I tell you how one daughter went from being labeled half a woman to dropping an $84,000 secret that silenced her entire family, you won't believe it. I grew up in a family where love often felt like a competition. My parents adored my older sister, and to them she could do no wrong. She was the shining star, the role model, the perfect daughter. And me, I was just there. If she got good grades, I got told to work harder. If she landed a job, I got asked when I'd ever make something of myself. Even at family dinners, conversations revolved around her achievements, her new clothes, her promotions, her future plans. My role was to clap, smile, and stay in the background. My sister, of course, loved the attention. She played the part of the golden child perfectly, smiling sweetly in front of my parents, while throwing subtle jabs at me whenever she got the chance. She didn't need to say outright that she was better than me, because my parents said it for her. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight, that maybe one day they'd notice me on their own. But years of being dismissed, of being labeled less than, built up a quiet fire inside me. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't worthless. In fact, while my sister flaunted her little wins, I was quietly working on something. Much bigger something none of them could have imagined. And it all came to a breaking point one night at dinner, when my parents pushed the favoritism too far, and I finally decided to show them exactly who I'd become. Dinner that night was supposed to be simple, a family meal to celebrate my sister's recent promotion. Of course, it wasn't just dinner. It was another stage for my parents to shower her with praise while I sat quietly at the edge of the table. The moment we sat down, my father started. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," he said to my sister. "You've always been such a hard worker. You're the kind of woman every parent dreams of." My mother nodded and, without missing a beat, turned to me. "You should really learn from your sister. You're half the woman she is, and that's being generous." She said it so casually, as if the words weren't cutting through me like glass. The table went quiet for a second, but then my sister smirked and shrugged, as though she'd earned the right to be placed above me. She didn't defend me. She didn't even look sorry. She soaked it all in, and I just sat there forcing a smile, my nails digging into my palm under the table. I wanted to scream, to tell them everything I'd done, everything I'd been working on. But instead, I stayed silent and let the tension burn in my chest. As the evening dragged on, my parents kept comparing my sister's job, her apartment, her clothes. My achievements were invisible, erased before I could even mention them. Finally, when my father raised a toast to my sister and called her the future of the family, I felt something inside me snap. They had no idea what I'd been building, no idea about the sacrifices, the late nights, the risks I'd taken. And I knew right then I wasn't going to leave that table without making them see me. Just when I thought the insults had reached their peak, my mother leaned in and said the words that still sting. "You know, if it weren't for us, you'd probably still be struggling to pay rent, unlike your sister, who's truly independent." The entire table chuckled. Even my father smirked, shaking his head as if I were some lost cause. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know I hadn't taken a single dollar from them in years. Every bill, every late night, every sacrifice, I carried all of it alone. And yet, there I was, painted as the dependent, the failure, the half-woman. My sister added her own poison to the wound. "Mom's right," she said, her voice dripping with pity. "Maybe if you stopped chasing hobbies and got serious about life, you'd be further along." Hobbies. That's what she called the business I had poured my soul into. That's what she reduced my sleepless nights, endless planning, and grinding to. For a moment, my throat tightened. I felt anger, yes, but also this deep, hollow ache. It wasn't just that they didn't see me. It was that they refused to. I had given up so much friends, weekends, even dating, just to build something real. And the people who should have been proud of me, they mocked me. That was the moment my hurt hardened into resolve. I wasn't going to keep swallowing their cruelty. Not tonight. Because what they dismissed as hobbies had just crossed a milestone so big, it would silence every laugh at that table. And I was about to tell them. I set my fork down slowly, my hands no longer shaking. For once, I wasn't going to swallow their insults. I looked straight at my parents and then at my sister, who was still basking in the spotlight. "You know," I began, keeping my voice calm, "you're right. I'm not like my sister. I don't chase promotions. I don't beg for validation." The table went quiet. My mother narrowed her eyes, my father raised an eyebrow, my sister smirked, ready for another chance to cut me down. "But while you were busy comparing me to her," I continued, "I was building something real. And just this week my business passed $84,000 in revenue." For a moment, silence. Complete silence. My father froze mid-sip. My mother blinked rapidly, her mouth opening but no words coming out. And my sister, her smirk vanished, replaced with a look I had never seen before. Shock mixed with jealousy. You're lying," my sister stammered, but her voice cracked. I slid my phone across the table, the numbers glowing on the screen sales records. Deposits, proof they couldn't argue with. The same people who had called me half the woman now couldn't even meet my eyes. The room was heavy, like all the air had been sucked out. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't in years' power. For once, they weren't laughing. For once, they had nothing to say. The rest of dinner was awkward, to say the least. My father cleared his throat and changed the subject. But the damage was already done. My mother barely touched her food, her usual confidence replaced with uneasy silence. And my sister? She sat there, red-faced, stabbing at her plate, refusing to look at me. The golden child had finally been knocked off her pedestal, and she knew it. When the night ended, nobody congratulated me. Nobody said they were proud. They simply gathered their things and left, as if pretending my words and my proof hadn't just flipped the family dynamic upside down. But I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their validation, their praise, or even their recognition. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their love, I was standing on my own success. They had called me half the woman. Now they knew the truth. And whether they admitted it or not, the silence at that table was my victory. Looking back, I don't regret what I said that night. For years, I let myself believe that silence was strength, that if I just worked harder, one day my parents would finally see me. But the truth is, some people will never see your worth until you force them to. My sister spent her whole life being the center of attention. But that attention was shallow. My journey was quieter, lonelier, and full of sacrifices no one ever clapped for. Yet in the end, that's what gave me real independence. Do I wish my parents had been proud? Of course. But their approval isn't the measure of my value anymore. What matters is that I proved to myself I was capable, worthy, and far more than the half-woman they tried to paint me as. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting them, it's about reclaiming yourself. And in that silence, I finally did. And that's where my story ends for now. But let me leave you with this. Favoritism and comparisons can break families apart, but they can also build resilience in the ones who refuse to give up. I know I'm not the only one who's been told they're less than, and I know how much it hurts. So I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have dropped the truth the way I did? Share your thoughts down in the comments, because your perspective might help someone else going through the same thing. And if this story struck a chord with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend who might need the reminder, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this. Until next time, this is Revenge Flame, where every story proves that sometimes the best payback is simply standing in your own power.